Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Soccer Sofa Football Podcast hosted by myself, The Stod. Unfortunately, Paddy can't be with me for this introduction. However, last week he recorded a fantastic interview with one of Somerset's finest goalkeepers. So don't worry, you're in safe hands. Amassing 405 appearances and, interestingly enough, scoring one goal, it's going to be a fantastic interview. Enjoy. Roll VT!
3,783,780. And that sponsor Albert Goodman chose as Yeovil's player of the evening was number 18.
Welcome back for another episode of Soccer Sofa. It's a real privilege to have Chris Weale on the Soccer Sofa this week. How are you, Chris?
Very good, thank you.
How's lockdown treated you so far?
It's okay. I'm missing coaching. I'm missing people, really, interacting with the pupils and interacting with other people. So it's great. It's been lovely with the family, but I'm just ready to do some other stuff now.
Yeah, we're certainly all ready for the football world to kick back into action. But in the meantime, it's great to have people like yourself on the show. And if we could start with your life in football right back at the beginning. Obviously, you grew up in Yeovil. I think you went to Westfield School. What were you like as a school kid? Were you good in the classroom?
I was pretty good. Yeah, I was pretty good. Both my teachers are parents, so I was pretty good. I think it just got ingrained in me that I need to do well at school, concentrate and stuff. So I did pretty well.
Were your parents teaching at Westfield when you were there then?
No, my dad was teaching at Yeovil College as a computer lecturer, and then my mum was teaching at East Coker Primary School. So.
And I think it would be fair to say sport very much ran in your family. Your twin brother is an Olympian, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. He went to Beijing and London, did modern pentathlon, did very well. Trained at Bath University because their base was at Bath University. And then my sister's a PE teacher, and my mum's in athletics. So, yeah, sport runs in the family.
And I think I read an article about you the other day, and it said your mum actually said that the team you played in when you were younger was so bad that was what made you into the great goalkeeper you became. Can I ask who you were playing for in Yeovil without offending anyone too much?
No, it's not there. Links United, they were called. We played opposite Westlands, so we were called Links because of the Links helicopter. And at under 12s, I remember because we played in the big goals then, there was none of the reduced sizing goals. So we would lose, heavily. So that's probably why I became a good goalkeeper, because I got lots to practice.
Was Sam in the same side as you were?
Yeah.
So I imagine he was in midfield, the engine room behind.
He was. He was, absolutely.
So, and then how did you first get picked up by Yeovil? What was the...
there was a school of excellence, like an academy kind of system in place back when I was younger. Unfortunately, it closed when I was about 12, so I was there from about 8 till 12, and then it closed. And from 12 to 16, there wasn't really anything. Then from 16, I just started training with the youth team, and then managed to play for the youth team, and then went from there really. Then played 2 years in the youth team, and we had a really successful team. So then Yeovil happened to be turning professional when I was 18. A new manager came in. I trained with the first team a couple of times, and he really liked me, and it just went from there.
So going back into the history of Yeovil Town, when it was semi-pro, that a lot of the players back then would have been having jobs on the side at the same time as playing for the club.
Yeah.
And I'm presuming that wasn't working in a glove factory like what we're known for in history or traditionally. What sort of jobs were people having on the side?
Well, various, because I was still in the youth team at the time. When we turned professional, I was 18, so I was still really in the youth team. So the pros, the transition from becoming semi-pro to pro, a lot of them left because of the jobs they were in. They couldn't afford to then become professional because it was better off than playing part-time football and working full-time as well. So that's why we had a really young team, basically, because we were cheap and hungry. The older players, they would do everything really: estate agents, salesmen. There was one that sold life insurance, and just various different things, or a collective mix of people that all come together.
Right, and then of course you were starting to see some younger players dropping out of league clubs and Premier League clubs that were joining you at Yeovil. I'm not sure if the likes of Darren Way and Lee Johnson would have been with you quite at this stage.
Well, no, Darren Way was, and Nick Crittenden was. They both joined. I remember them turning up with Dave Webb on the first day. And then there was a few of us. Tom White as well. I remember him turning up. Warren Patmore was still there, but as a part-time player and not a full-time player. It was good times.
And I imagine, were you still living at home then and coming in to work? Okay. Yeah. And then all these, I think back then, was it encouraged that you lived together as players? Was everybody sort of in the same place?
No. I think now, I know Yeovil do now because of location and of ease and finance, that they all try to get together, especially the pros. But no, back then, no, not really. There was a couple that lived together in like a boarding house kind of thing. But no.
And then, so the manager at the time, I think you said, was Dave Webb?
Yep.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm just trying to get in my head, because Colin Addison was also there later on, and I think he gave you your first team debut. Is that correct?
Yeah, Dave Webb liked me for some reason. I don't really know why, but he wanted to play me. But Tony Pennock was there as a first team, and he was very popular with the fans. So I had to wait. I was only 18. So then Colin Addison took over. Tony Pennock got injured, and then I played a couple of games in my first year as a pro. He only lasted 3 or 4 months, Colin Addison, and left, and then Gary Johnson came in.
Sure, and I think during that time you went out on loan to Gillingham Town down the road.
No, that when I was in the youth team, I played for Gillingham as well as the youth team. So I was playing for Gillingham on a Sunday in their youth team, playing on the Yeovil youth team on a Saturday, and then playing for Yeovil College on a Wednesday. So I was having 3 games a week. And then when our season finished for the youth team, I then went and played for the men's team on a Saturday for Gillingham. So I had lots of football.
Quite a lot of football, and of course you were learning from some proper seasoned pros. So what was your relationship like with Tony Pennock at the time?
Yeah, that was great. He's probably, because now I'm not sure where he is now, but he was academy director at Swansea for many years, and he was obviously always going to be a very good coach. So he kind of took me under my wing. I had Terry Skiverton as well. I remember Adrian Foster was very good with me. Darren Way was very good with me as well, in terms of trying to develop me and help me. I think they could see I had a bit of talent and wanted to nurture me and help me. So really, it's probably Terry Skiverton and Tony Pennock are the reason why I had a career, really, because I learned from them. They'd had good groundings. They'd been in a professional club when they were younger, and just, probably because of them.
And it was a great time for Yeovil then, or the start of some great times. I think in one of your early seasons, we actually finished 3rd. I think it might have been 2001. And it's Boston United that actually got promoted. But if my memory serves me correctly, there was some financial irregularities going. Did that cause a bit of upset and unrest within the club? We'd finished 3rd, they'd gone up 1st, they shouldn't have done.
No, I don't think so. I don't really know. I can't really remember which season that was, but if that was the first season, we didn't deserve to go up anyway. We were something like 10 points clear, and we blew it. It wasn't nothing to do with them. We blew it. So
that's good. That's a very honest reflection of the times. Of course, also during that season, I think John Fry came out saying if Dave Webb had stayed and he hadn't fired Colin Addison, we would have gone up that season. Was there a bit of bad blood between Colin and John Fry at the time?
No, I don't think so. I think Dave Webb it was his team basically, so it's difficult for another manager coming in. So I think that's probably his point, was that if a manager picks his team, grows and nurtures them, and then it was difficult for the new manager coming in basically.
And of course, then our new manager is coming in as Gary Johnson, who's now a Yeovil legend. What were your first impressions of Gary when he came in?
Well, he didn't have a clue who I was. So I said I was going to go to Southend. I met Dave Webb in the fish and chip shop in Yeovil. I met him in his car, and I was going to go with him. But then I met Gary the next day and said, look, Dave Webb wants to take me to Southend. What do you think? And he said, look, I don't know who you are, to be honest. And I said, well, I'm a Yeovil boy. I'd love to play for Yeovil. I want to be number one. And he said, right, well, prove it to me then. And then, so I just did. So I remember the first training session, he came up to me and said, oh, okay, I know what you're about now. So, yeah, it went from there, really.
You were just talking about Gary Johnson persuading you to stay instead of rather going to Southend. There was loads of goalkeepers at the time on the books with Yeovil Town, if my memory serves me right. There was John Sheffield, Tony Pennant, yourself. How on earth did Gary keep you all happy?
Well, Tony left, so it was just John Sheffield, Steve Collis and myself. And I remember sitting down with Gary and said, look, he said, I want 3 goalkeepers. So I was like, okay. And I wasn't happy with that, really. But then I managed he was obviously going to play John Sheffield to start because he was the senior goalkeeper and probably the most money. So to justify his wage, he needed to play. His start didn't go very well. And then it was me and Steve, basically similar ages, similar experiences, battling it out to play. I managed to convince Gary to play me rather than Steve. It was really good between us two, me and Steve. We had a really good battle and very similar characters, got on really well, lovely guy. And it's just, yeah, maybe I potentially wanted it a little bit more than him. And that's all it came down to, really. We worked really hard. John became our coach, then John Sheffield became our coach. And it was really good between the 3 of us. So to satisfy John, he coached us, basically. For me, I was mainly number one. And then when I didn't have as good a time in the team, Steve came in to satisfy him, to playing some games. At the time, you don't really realise that. You want to play every game and you think, oh, I've maybe made one mistake. Why am I not playing? And then you realise now, looking back, you're like, well, Steve was there training every single day. I think he deserves to play a few games. But when you're in it, you're like, well, I want to play. But yeah, I totally understand Gary's decision sometimes to play Steve rather than myself.
Yeah, I mean, we were so fortunate at the time to have 2 goalkeepers that were very similar in standard, and there was even one point in your career where you got injured and Steve filled in remarkably well for quite a prolonged period. But this was the start of great times with Yeovil. So not only were we challenging up at the top, 2000, it was the FA Trophy final that you got to, and really your first major trophy at that level. How was it getting to that final and playing at Villa Park?
It was, really good. Great experience for myself and for the team, for a young team. And I always say we were never going to lose that game. We were always going to win that game, no matter what, because the preparation we had done, Gary's preparation, is so spot on that, we were never going to lose that game because of how well prepared we were for the game. And
of course, in that side, there's a lot of players that have gone on to arguably play at the top level, in whether it is in Scotland or England. Were you aware of, at the time, quite what a side we had building?
No, not at all. You just think, for some reason, we're quite good. We played some lovely football. I don't know. We just had a young, hungry team that were all similar ages that loved football and wanted to, very driven and passionate about the game. So,
and I mean, back then, Yeovil's never been a great pull for a nightlife, for a young footballer, getting them down this way. How on earth did Gary keep you all together and happy in a town like Yeovil?
I think because of our ages, really. I think, a lot of us were probably 20 to 25, 26. So we didn't really have many ties in terms of wife and children. So it was good. And then we were developing and maturing. And so Yeovil was kind of a perfect sized place to do that.
Yeah, and I think it would be fair to say that the club started to rise with you guys, and then that season of winning the FA Trophy. And do you feel that really kicked you on to winning the conference the following season?
Yeah, I think because Gary was just the way he was, very driven, and we had a lot of driven players. It just the recipe was perfect, really, because you had a great manager, very young, hungry manager still. We had lots of young, hungry players, and it went well.
And then, of course, you're in League Two, and amazingly, you're taking League Two by storm. A few really positive signings as well. What was that first season like, playing at League Two? Did you notice a big step up?
No, I didn't really notice a big step up, to be honest, because I think the way we were so professional, so ingrained in the way we played, I don't think it really mattered who we played. No, I didn't really notice much different. Maybe League One, when we started playing League One, only because Gary left then, and then things changed. And then as soon as something leaves and then someone else leaves, you kind of lose that togetherness, and the chain breaks at the weakest link, if you know what I mean. And the chain was strong, but obviously when someone leaves, then it becomes weak.
And then in League Two, it was certainly in your career, you were starting to receive quite a lot of attention, and yourself and Gavin Williams went on trial to West Ham. First of all, were you aware of people watching you at games, and was there talk that there might be a table?
Yeah, I guess so, because no, I didn't really know, but I think because I'm a young goalkeeper, then there's not many young goalkeepers out there, and I was playing regularly first team, so it kind of married up that why not? There should be, really, yeah. But no, I didn't really. I just played my game and got on with it, really.
And then when that call came in to go on trial to West Ham, how did that happen? Is that a call to your mobile or through your agent? Or
I didn't have an agent at the time, and that may be what scuppered the move and everything, because for a first team goalkeeper playing in League Two, I shouldn't have really gone on trial. You don't do that. So I don't really know why it turned into that. It was more Gary had a lot of input into it. So for me, looking back, if you're a League Two goalkeeper playing in the first team, then if they want to sign you, they sign you, then there's no need for you to go on trial. But it was a great experience for me. It was a brilliant experience for me, because I've trained with some really good goalkeepers and a good goalie coach, and learnt a lot. So I was down there Monday, Tuesdays, then came back and trained Thursday, Friday. I just assumed, looking back, that it should have been done, the deal should have been done, but it wasn't done because I don't know why. So I know.
Sorry, go on, Chris.
No, that's just I learned from the experience, and I knew it was great for me because I knew that I wanted to play at that level eventually, and I knew I'd do whatever it takes to get there. So, and eventually I did. So.
And is that a kind of a regret that you didn't get the opportunity to move at that point?
No, not at all. I don't think I was ready anyway for it, to be honest. If they wanted me to play in the first team at 23, probably 24, I wasn't ready. Looking back now, but it was perfect time to play in the first team at Leicester when I was 27, 28.
Yes, yeah. I mean, goalkeepers tend to peak at different times, don't they?
Yeah.
And I'd also, I think it'd be a fair point to say you might not have played as many games as you did across all those seasons.
I think Gary was absolutely right. He said there's no point in going there if you're going to be a number 2 or 3 or maybe play a few games in the first team. Wait until you're ready for the first team. But as a young boy, you're like, West Ham or whoever it was, you're like, I want to go there. But in reality, he's absolutely right, because you're just a number. If you're not playing in the first team and you play 3 or 4 games, no one's really going to know about you, and it's going to be difficult to get another club. So he was right.
Well, I'm probably speaking on behalf of a lot of the Oval fans. I wish I knew that at the time because I thought you were gone. So it now feels reassuring that you weren't, but then I kind of know you weren't because you stayed on. It just shows how what we see on the outside as fans is not always perhaps what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But thankfully you stayed. There was a great FA Cup game against Liverpool in that season that you were part of. How was that? I mean, the FA Cup history of Yeovil is obviously incredible. Walk us through the playing in big games like that.
It's funny because one of the teachers at Sherborne School, his first ever game he watched on telly was that Yeovil versus Liverpool, and I happened to be playing in goal. So it was really funny because it was live on BBC.
I was there. I remember.
Right, and it was a really foggy day. It was awesome. Really good. Really good.
Yeah, well, they put out quite a strong side from memory serving.
They did.
I think Danny Murphy, Emil Heskey.
Yeah, Dudek was in goal.
Yes, yeah. And do you feel the sort of buzz in the town when it's happening?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you see them all queuing up, getting their tickets and stuff. It was brilliant. It was just a great experience for myself. And yeah.
And the fact that we competed like we did probably showed at the time that we were a squad capable of bigger and better things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, that season we got promoted, or actually was it the following season we got promotion to League One. And you played about half the season and then got an injury halfway through, and Steve stepped up. But were you starting to feel that this perhaps was your Yeovil career coming to an end?
Yeah, because I think when you go from 18 to 24, I think, and you've been at a club for 6 years, I was probably ready to move on because I was from a Yeovil as well. I was ready to sample new things, new cities, new towns, or whatever it was. I think you can be at a club for too long. I would have loved to have stayed, but I just had ambitions, not saying bigger than Yeovil, because Yeovil to me, when I was younger, was the biggest club in the world. I've always said that because I didn't know any different. So because I grew up in Yeovil, they were like a Man United, a boy growing up in Manchester. So I didn't really know any different about Yeovil being a big club or a small club. I didn't know. To me, it was a huge club. But I wanted to sample a different club. And I was ready. So I was 24 and I kind of knew that if my contract ran out, it would be a Bosman free rather than someone have to pay money, and they're more likely to take a goalkeeper on a free than have to pay money. And it's just the business, it's the world that it is. But unfortunately I got injured. So I remember it was Chesterfield away in March time. I had 2 or 3 good offers from good clubs, a couple of Premier League clubs and Championship clubs, and I knew that there'd be an offer there. But unfortunately I did my cruise ship knee ligament, no fault of my own, someone just clattered into me. And then that was it really. I didn't have any, so 24 I was coming at the end of my contract, and Russell Slade, the manager taking over from Gary, offered me a contract, but then so did Gary. So at Bristol, so I thought it was time. It was ready. I was ready to leave. So
are you allowed to disclose who those clubs were that came in just before the injury?
No, I don't know.
You can't remember?
No. I knew Portsmouth. I think they were in the Premier League or the Championship at the time. I knew they were very keen. There was a couple of others that I knew were keen. Why wouldn't they be? There's a 24-year-old free transfer goalkeeper, played almost 200 games, 6 foot, whatever. You're gonna take a punt on him.
Yeah, sure.
So especially nowadays it would be completely different. But because of social media and everything's highlighted. But back then, maybe my name wasn't as big as it maybe could have been. But I'm just saying. But it was ready. I was ready to move on.
Yeah, sure. And I'm supposing at the time it must have been pretty gutting, and perhaps a sign of just how a football career can be over quickly or change quickly, in that those offers were taken away as soon as you had the injury.
Yeah, absolutely. But that as a footballer, that's the way. And I just felt for Yeovil, I felt like it was amazing because they did go on to the Championship. I just felt they couldn't. The squad we had, we were near the bottom of the league, struggling in League One. Gary had left, Steve Thompson was in charge. I just felt the direction the club wasn't going in the right way. So that's why I kind of made it my mind up really quite easy to move on. Having said that, 3 years later, was it?
It was, yeah. But I must admit, even with my green and white tinted spectacles, I didn't see that coming. And at the time, we were scrapping it out at the bottom. But yeah, and also losing Gary Johnson. I think Phil Jevons went with you. Liam Fontaine.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I just felt at the time that the heart was ripped out of Yeovil and a rebuilding job.
Yeah, Gavin Williams, I think, and Lee left as well. Lee Johnson.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me. That's like five of our stars that went up through the ranks. But anyway, I can totally understand. The Bright Lights of Bristol were there, in a team that arguably was pushing for Premier League football. That first season, I think the first season actually was quite tough, if I remember rightly. I think there was you were near the bottom of the table at points from memory.
Yeah, I was still at Yeovil then. Gary, Gary's. The thing with Gary, the way he does things, he upsets the apple cart massively when he goes into a new club. So, and if you've got a bunch of apples that are not great and then they don't turn, then they're never going to turn.
Sure.
So he gets in people that buy into his way. So that's why they're bottom of the league. It was obvious what was going to happen because they were not going to be happy with his methods. So it either goes really well or really badly. There's not much middle ground with him. So
yeah, I seem to remember taking a crumb of comfort that we were above City at one point during that time, but it didn't last very long. And of course, it was then really quite a memorable season where you got to the playoff final. But I think it would be fair to say you hadn't actually played many games for City at the time. How was it playing second fiddle to Basso, I think it was at the time?
Yeah, it's frustrating because I'd grown up playing every week in, week out, really, at Yeovil. Very frustrating because I signed when I was injured and then the team was flying. So you can't get into a team that's doing really well. Why would any manager change it? So it was incredibly frustrating 3 years. And again, Gary, I should have left really because I wasn't playing and I wanted to leave. But then Gary had a very good way of selling things that convinced me to, because I only signed 1 year contracts there, but convinced me to stay for another 2 years. And really, I shouldn't have done. But then it worked out okay. But again, I had a couple of good offers from some good clubs, and I just don't know. Gary had it because you know what Gary's like in terms of the way he is. He's always going to get success, and he's always going to look after you. So, if you buy into the way he is, so that's why I stayed.
Yeah, and of course, you can always look back on these things, and it doesn't quite pan out how perhaps you hoped. But of course, during that time, I'm just getting my dates right. You did have a loan back to Yeovil at the time, which I remember as a Yeovil fan, I was over the moon that you came back. I think that was 2008, 2009, helping out your old mate Terry Skiverton. Tough sell to get you back to Huish Park for that period.
No. I was desperate to play, so it was perfect. It was brilliant.
And did it help that it was Terry that you were going to work with?
Yeah, massively. Terry's brilliant, and as a coach and a manager, he was fantastic.
And then possibly one of the highlights of your time at Yeovil ever was the goal that you scored against Hereford from the corner. Can you talk us through that experience?
Was it Andrews Townsend who put the ball in? I can't remember. Yeah, Andrews Townsend was playing actually then as well for us online. We were playing Hereford, and it was towards the end of the season. We needed a point or 3 points, and we were just rubbish at corners. It was one of those games as a goalkeeper you have nothing to do, and then you're 2-0 down or 2-1 down. You're like, well, how did that happen? And and you've literally touched the ball 2 times. So I thought, and then I was just watching Court. We're putting them under a lot of pressure. Peter Galatsky, the goalkeeper who plays for some German side in the Champions League. He played in goal for Hereford then.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah. So I scored past him. My header was past him, and he's like one of the best goalies in the world apparently at the moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it just shows the corner taken by Townsend, who's now playing for Palace in the Premier League. Beating a German international goalkeeper.
So I just got fed up with them missing. So we put them in loads of pressure. So I thought, why not? I'll go up and manage to score. And
when it came to celebrating, did you really know what to do?
No idea. I hadn't planned that one. I get a lot of stick for that. Everyone always gives me loads of stick for it.
I think just running along for quite a long time, from what I remember. Not that I blame you. I would have been the same. But of course, the slight irony of the Hereford goal was you'd been on loan at Hereford earlier in the season, and ultimately your goal kind of condemned them to relegation.
Yeah, and I think they might have already been relegated. I'm not sure, but it just put the nail in the coffin a little bit. And then, funny enough, Graham Turner, the manager, signed me at Shrewsbury when I left Leicester.
Yes,
he's a lovely guy.
He probably remembered when he'd last seen you.
I think he did.
Okay, and then really, this is where as much as it pains me to say, your career hit its heights was joining Leicester City. How did that move come about? Because I look now at Leicester City, where they are, Bristol City, and for someone who wasn't starting for City, and then you're signing as Leicester's number 1, was that a bit of a surprise? Was there a lot of build-up to it?
No, I think because, like I said about my reputation when I was at Yeovil, I'd played 200 odd games in the first team from 18 to 24. From a coach's point of view now, that absolutely I've got all the credentials and fundamentals to be a number 1. So because I know Mike Stow signed me in terms of the goalie coach, so he knew me at Yeovil, he knew me at Bristol. He obviously could see why I wasn't playing at Bristol. So it was kind of, probably now it was a bit of a big deal in terms of putting a number 2 in as a number 1, but I was really a number 1, if that makes sense. So it wasn't really a big thing for them because they knew me as a goalkeeper and as a person and a character. So that's what Nigel Pearson really looks for, characters and personalities. So it wasn't really an issue for them and nor for myself.
And of course, I think Leicester were newly promoted at the time, and I was looking at the squad just before we spoke today, and you could kind of see the nucleus of the teams that have got them up the leagues and actually winning the Premier League at the time. You just alluded to Nigel Pearson as your manager. And how was it joining Leicester at that stage? Did you realise it was the start of something big?
I think so. The way he was as a person, the way it's similar to Gary, to be honest. He gets in the right people, the right support staff, the right players. So then you can only get success if that's the formula.
And obviously it's tried and tested. You played 51 games in your first season, so you were quite rightly number 1. And I think you finished 5th that season, and you got to a playoff semi-final. What was that season like? Is there any standout games in there that you remember?
I remember the playoff games very clearly. I remember the game I didn't play, which was really annoying, the last game of the season, because I wanted to play a full season. It was really annoying because they wanted to keep me for the playoffs, understandably so, but then also frustrating from my point of view because I'd never actually ticked that box of 46-game season. I'd always had an injury or whatever. So that frustrated me. Stand out, not really. I think for me it was great to play. We played at some really good stadiums, big clubs. Newcastle we played, and stands out in terms of Newcastle away. It was fantastic playing there. It was great. We had a lovely squad, a really good squad. Young, hungry, very humble team. Nigel got a really good team together. And then things changed a little bit the next season. I was very unfortunate. I think the manager left, and then new owners came in, and everything that he had built kind of changed a little bit in an okay way. But then he came back and obviously transformed it again, and that's because of him, really. And obviously the owners, because the owners had the wise decision to bring him back.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of transition, but which you just touched on. But of course, the main reason for that transition was the new Thai owner, and I'm going to really struggle pronouncing his name. Vici, I think it was Vici, and he sadly died in the helicopter crash not too recently. Did you ever come across with Kun Vici, or was he a chap? Did you enjoy working with him?
Yeah, lovely. He was a lovely player, and he's very hands-on. So he'd always come into the dressing room and always see us, and he took us out to Thailand to see Thailand, and he was brilliant. He was absolutely lovely bloke, and so is his son. His amazing family. They're very very good people.
What was it you really noticed between the old owners, which I think was Milan Mandaric, with these guys taking over?
I think more and more PR, really, in terms of more marketing. They kind of were very good at that in terms of the brand, in terms of developing Leicester into a brand, and really that's what they've done. It's been amazing what they've achieved, to pick a club and then to develop it into a brand, and then go on and be Premier League champions. Is brilliant. Yeah,
they've certainly put Leicester on the map. And of course, one of those managers that came in during your time there was Sven-Göran Eriksson. How was it working with him? He's obviously a character.
Yeah, it was great. He's a lovely bloke, really nice bloke. I think from the Thai's point of view, from the owners, they brought him in because he's a name in Thailand, a brand, as opposed to maybe the football decision maybe wasn't the right decision. For the team we had, I'm not saying he wasn't a good manager. It was for the team we had. We had a Nigel Pearson team, dogged, hardworking, driven. He changed that, and that's probably why it didn't work. Paulo Sousa came in first, tried to play total football with a team that's Nigel Pearson's team. Didn't work. And then Sven came in and just had a lot of money to spend, basically. So it was a bit of a transition time. But yeah, and then the club's gone and done fantastic.
And of course, I think in that second season, you perhaps played about 20 games. So do you think this changing of management sort of impacted your career slightly negatively at the time?
Yeah, it did. That was probably the turning point in terms of in my head, really, because I was number one to start, and then I played a fair few games, and then Sven came in, brought in a Portuguese Ricardo, the goalkeeper that saved Darius Vassell's penalty with his gloves off. And that kind of changed everything, because he brought him in. He was okay goalkeeper, but in my opinion, I was a better goalkeeper. But he brought him in from kind of a marketing PR point of view, and then it kind of changed everything. I was like, well, this isn't football. This isn't the way it's supposed to be. So kind of in my head a little bit, it changed the way I looked at things. Maybe I was just unfortunate, the timing of things. But also kind of the romance of football kind of then turned into kind of a business and a job almost. And, it was a bit of a change for me, and it was a bit just the way it is, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess it's a money business, and everyone's trying to get the bright lights of the Premier League. Of course, a goalkeeper that came in that summer that I imagine made it incredibly difficult for you was Kasper Schmeichel. What was your experiences working with Kasper?
It was great, but to be fair, the first day when he turned up, I thought, right, I'll prove that I'm a better goalkeeper, because I've always done that, like Ricardo, for example, or whoever's come in, I've always gone, right, now I'll prove I'm a better goalkeeper. First day I was like, okay, you're another level. So from that day, I guess, I accepted that I wasn't. He's a better goalkeeper than me, and there's no questions about it. Yeah,
I imagine that's a hard thing to take, but I guess at least you're you're being beaten by one of the best in the world rather than
Yeah.
than an average goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And of course, this then spelled the time of, or heading towards the end of your time at Leicester. Were there many offers on the table? Was it a...
Oh yeah, I was meant to go to Watford when I was just about to go to Watford when Sven got the sack, because Ricardo was out. I was going to go to Watford. I was sat on the table with Sean Dyche having an Italian meal at a restaurant, literally signing the paperwork, and it happened to be that day that you got the sack. So it was taking ages for the paperwork, and we finished our meal thinking, what's going on here? Why can't we just sign the paperwork, get it done, I'll train tomorrow? And it just took ages, and we were like, what's going on? Then we had a phone call saying, Sven's got the sack. So then it couldn't happen. So that was frustrating, because Watford was a really big club. Sean Dyche, Sean Dyche.
It would have been Sean, before he was the Burnley boss.
Yeah, Sean Dyche, fantastic. Yeah, knew he was very similar to Nigel Pearson. Knew what he wanted, and I would have fitted in really well, I believe. Anyway, yeah, that couldn't happen. Nigel came back in as Leicester manager after Sven got the sack, and then every day I was banging on his door going, "Nigel, can I go on loan? Can I play football?" Because I wanted to play football, because Casper was playing. And then about 2 months later, he comes up to me and goes, "Chris, I've got you a loan move." I was like, "Great, okay, where is it?" He said, "Northampton." I was like, "Okay." They were bottom of the League Two at the time with AD Boothroyd as manager. Completely, 7 points or something like that they'd got. And I thought, okay, I quite fancied the challenge and really wanted a challenge. And really, because I spoke to AD Boothroyd on the phone and was like, "Oh, you're another level in terms of the way he was as a person and the personality and how he wanted to get to know you as a person." So he was brilliant. And then unfortunately I got injured, did my knee again, 3 games down. And we had literally won that first game that we needed to win. And in the 95th minute or something, I did my cartilage in my knee, which turned into a really, really bad injury, because then I had a stress fracture in my femur, which is almost impossible to get. And then that's put me out for a number of months. And then I was out of contract at Leicester with no club and no one wanting me. So yeah, then Shrewsbury took a massive gamble on me, Shrewsbury Town, because I knew the goalie coach was ringing me every week saying, "How are you? What's going on?" And I didn't really want to drop down to Shrewsbury level in terms of League One, because I was playing in the Championship. But I met him, met the club, met the manager, and just thought it was perfect for me. I just want to play football. I'm not into it for the money. I'm not into it for the fame and all that. I just wanted to play football. So it was perfect. Brilliant.
Which league were Watford in at the time? Were they champions?
They were in the Championship. Yeah, they were in the Championship. Scott Loach was the goalkeeper, and they were a little bit unsure about him.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, it's just a sign that football changes quickly.
Oh, really quickly.
But then it does sound like it was a good move for you to Shrewsbury, and I think in that first season, you were voted Player of the Season. Is that a sign of how bad the season was for Shrewsbury and that you had a lot of work to do, or were you part of a good? No.
We managed to survive. Don't know how, but I just had one of those seasons where you basically have 15 shots a game and then you save every one, and it's just like, I had just one of those seasons, and it was brilliant. A really good season, yeah, for me personally. And the next season, the trouble is he went and signed 2 really good centre halves, but no strikers. So he spent all his money on signing 2 centre halves, which were great, and then I had less work to do, but we didn't score any goals, so then we got relegated.
I thought you'd be all for getting good defenders rather than strikers, but
yeah, if you can't put the ball in the back of the net, then you're going to be in trouble.
True. Where after you'd had that good season at Shrewsbury, was there any other offers on the table? Were you thinking my chance?
Yeah, no, there was, but again, I was 29, I think. No, I was 31, I think. There were a few, but nothing, because I was. Amazing. Yeah, because someone had to pay money for me that they didn't really pay money. So there was a few. I was quite happy and content, so I didn't really push it. My agent didn't push it. we could have done, but I was quite happy to stay at Shrewsbury for another year. We just given my boy had been born, and I was really content and happy. So
and playing regularly as well.
Yeah.
Which
so why change it and try and chase something that wasn't probably there and be a number 2 or 3 or whatever? So I was quite happy. And then, unfortunately, the next season the manager gets the sack. As football changes like that, the new manager comes in, gets rid of all the senior players because we're on too much money, and then out of work again. It's just like I've had 2 really good years, but yeah. So and then Gary phoned me up. So.
Yeah, and again, I was over the moon to see you back, and you were kind of in a situation at Yeovil where we also had Artur Kryzak at Yeovil at the time. So you must have kind of been signing up to thinking, I'm going to have to really battle for that number 1 spot.
Well, yeah, I was at an age as well where I was quite content to be number 1, and I just wanted a young number 2, and I was just happy playing because I was at that age.
But of course, it was a really difficult time at Yeovil in that season. We'd just been relegated from the Championship, and really it was the start of a downward spiral for the team. What was the club like into at that stage, and probably not the side you left behind?
No.
Before.
Completely different, completely. And I'd gone from being, at Yeovil all my career, really been in good, really nice environments and really good. And I just don't think people could handle getting relegated. And then that kind of feeling, or not toxicity, but like that aggression towards getting relegated just carried on. And it's like, just,
off and away, isn't it?
Yeah, and it just carried on. And then, so that's the way. And then, like, me and Artur probably wanted it more than me, in terms of I was just happy to tick along and play football because I wanted to play football. I didn't want to bust my gut every single day because I wanted to bust my gut on a Saturday. And Gary picks the side based on what you do in the week and stuff. And I was at an age where I just wanted to play football, and he probably wanted it more than me, so he played more games than me.
And then, of course, Gary got the sack. Then Paul Sturrock took over, and you were part of the relegation to League Two. First of all, let's go back to Gary. Was your relationship with Gary as it was at City and your previous time at Yeovil, or were things harder?
No, much harder. I'll be honest, because I was young then, I didn't know any different. He was really my 3rd manager I've ever had, and he expected me to be a certain way when I came back. I'd experienced some really good managers. Not saying he's not a good manager. I had some really, really good managers at my time at other clubs, and his way of doing things was completely different to their way of doing things, and it didn't really suit the way I was at my age, how he managed. But that's him and that's me, and we grow and mature and learn. So and it's, I mean, I'm sure there's managers that work well for you at different times of your career. Yeah, absolutely.
And then, of course, Paul Sturrock took over. And I must admit, as a Yeovil fan, I was quite excited about Paul Sturrock taking over. I think he turned up in his kilt for the first game of the season, and I thought, we're on the turn here, and it didn't happen.
No.
What was your time like with Paul? How was it working with him?
I really liked. So again, I got injured quite a bit. I went on loan to Burton Albion because Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank was the manager. I wasn't playing, so he signed me. I got injured, and unfortunately Gary got the sack, I think, when I got injured. Paul Sturrock came in, and I was still injured, so he wanted to play me. He liked my experience and liked the way I was as a person and stuff. But I literally, the first day he turned up, that was my first training session. So he said, "Look, do you want to play on Saturday?" And I was like, "Look, I've been out injured for 3 months. It's up to you. It's your call. You play me if you want to play me." And he went with Artur. And Artur did really well, to be fair. And then Artur carried on playing, really. But for me, I loved him, Paul Sturrock. I thought he was brilliant. really just perfect. What I needed at that stage in my career, I thought it was absolutely brilliant. It was a breath of fresh air for me, completely different to Gary. And I just thought it's a real shame it didn't work, because he could have been really good.
Yeah, he seemed like the perfect fit at the time, and it just didn't work out. And yeah, it was absolutely gutting. But of course, then your old friend Darren Way took over, and there was sort of a mini revival going on underway. So lots of chest pumping and getting the fans going. How were things working with Darren?
Yeah, it was all right. It was okay. I would say he's very similar to Gary in the way he managed. Terry was different to Gary. Terry was more of a Nigel Pearson kind of, probably Sean Dyche or kind of way. Darren was very much like Gary in terms of very intense. So you've gone from Gary to Paul Sturrock to Darren. Yeah, it was a bit up here, down here, up here, if you know what I mean. So I found it quite difficult, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and would you say at the club going through this kind of roller coaster of managing styles was starting to rub off on perhaps the squad we'd put together at the time, and it was kind of a little bit of everybody's team that it never quite got going and never quite worked?
That's the thing. I think, like I've touched on earlier, that in order to have a successful team, you need good staff, a philosophy, good players that they've all brought in, and it takes time to develop. And you can't just have overnight success, although it might happen for 3, 4, 5 games. It doesn't. It happens over a course of 2, 3, 4 years, and you bring in the right people, the right start, and so on. They're trying to get overnight success, and it's really difficult, and I don't think it's ever going to work like that. So it takes time to build things.
Yeah, definitely true. Managers all need time to put their own stamp on a side. I think I'm right in saying that Darren first signed you up as a goalkeeping player coach. So you started to get into coach. Was it Darren that started?
No, Paul Sturrock did. I laugh because basically he said, right, you scrapped your contracts, basically, took out any bonuses and any appearance money and anything. I'm not sure if you can do that, but he did. And said, you can either leave or you can be player coach. And I was like, well, I want to play. And he said, well, no, you can leave or you can be player coach. And he did it to a lot of people. So I was like, well, I'm 34, I'll give it a go, and really enjoyed it, to be honest, really enjoyed it. Me and Arthur's a great guy and really easy to coach, perfect to coach, so it was great. And then I was playing under Darren, because Darren I got back in the side, and when you're a coach and a player, that's not going to work. It doesn't work. You can't be a number one and be a coach. It just doesn't work. So I played quite a few games, I think, as being goalie, coach and player, but it just didn't work. And I really loved that stage. I thought I played quite well, and then made a couple of mistakes, and then I was out. So,
so that must have been a really difficult time. You were coaching Arthur to try and help him to become number one, and yet you were number one. Was that just fortunate that he was a good guy and he didn't resent you for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's a brilliant guy. Yeah, and we worked really well together. So yeah, it was okay, but with another goalie, it wouldn't have worked at all.
But then, in many ways, Paul Sturrock did you a big favour in that you had now started your coaching career, and you left Yeovil, and actually, I think this was quite a surprising signing for Derby County. I remember it in the coming up on the transfer list on BBC and seeing Chris Weale joining Derby, and of course it was your old mate Nigel Pearson. What was that? A bit of a bolt out of the blue?
No, see, this funny for football fans, I guess it is, but for me, it's a no-brainer. As a coach now, it's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you do that? Because you need an experienced goalkeeper who's proven and played in the Championship. Just because he's had a couple of years not playing the Championship, I don't understand why he can't play in the Championship again. So it's a no-brainer for me and for him. I was going in as a number 2, number 3, really a number 3 to help out. I think I've played over 500, 400 games or whatever. I've got experience. So what? It's an absolute no-brainer. So I know from the outside looking in, it's a strange move, but from a coach's point of view, I'll be like, absolutely, you need someone with experience, someone that's not going to upset the apple cart, who's going to be really good to the younger players as well. It's a perfect scenario.
Yes, yeah, and obviously, was that a case of you just going up to stay in Derby for say the week and then coming back down to weekends?
Yeah, it was great. So I mean, I played a few 23 games. There was no reserve game, but I played 23 games, which were really good because we played Derby academy. So you get the goalkeeper can play an overage player in the under 23s. So we got to play some really good teams. They're playing like the Champions League under 23s games. We played some really good teams. It was really good experience for myself. And then on a match day, you would have to go as a number 3 anyway, to warm up and everything. And then just in case anyone gets injured. Scott Carson was the goalkeeper, number 1. He was brilliant, really, really good guy. And Pascal Zubarula was the goalie coach. I don't know if you ever come across him, but he's a Swiss.
I haven't, no.
The only ever goalkeeper in the World Cup to keep 3 clean sheets and not go through the group stages to the knockouts.
No way.
So
was
Switzerland?
3-0 or something?
Yeah, 3-0. Yeah, Switzerland didn't go through. But he was awesome. What a guy, and I loved it. Absolutely brilliant.
And I suppose. Sorry, Chris, go on.
Nigel got the sack. Steve McLaren came in, and all changed again. And at my age, I was just like, I just can't deal with that because it was going lovely. It was really nice, great people, really good. Steve McLaren was a great guy, really good guy. But I just thought I could see that he hadn't signed me, and I just knew what was going to happen. So I just asked to leave, and because I didn't want to be travelling up 4.5 hours away from my family to not be wanted and not be know who I was really, because I knew Nigel and knew all his staff really well, and so he was happy for me to go. And Steve was a great guy, really good coach, and I learned a lot from his coaching. But I left in late January, right at the end of January, because
I imagine there was a young goalkeeping coach. And still gaining your experience, it was actually a good opportunity as well to be involved in the setup that they had at Derby County.
Oh, yeah, fantastic setup. They're a Category A academy as well, so I watched a lot of coaching sessions with the academy, and yeah, it was awesome. The facilities were incredible because they've got a really wealthy owner who really wants to push on and do well. And yeah, it's a Premier League club really, so bigger in terms of structure and setup than Leicester, but obviously Leicester are getting a new training ground now. So, but yeah, similar size club to Leicester.
And then of course, your coaching career's really kicked on from there, going to Exeter City, and then of course you finished up with Dorchester. Is the goalkeeping coaching a way you're going to go more with your career now? I know you're working at Sherborne School.
No, well, because I did a year I played for Dorchester for a year part-time, doing some other stuff and charity work and stuff. And then I did a year at Exeter as player coach, goalkeeping coach. And then I got involved in the outfield stuff at Exeter, really enjoyed it. So then the role came up at Sherborne Boys School as director of football coaching. So now I'm responsible for the whole football, not just goalkeepers, but for the whole football programme. Delivering that. So that's what I really love, because goalies is great, but it's a niche thing. You're working with 2 or 3 people every day, so, and then you want to be working with 20, 30 people every day. So I love it. It's great.
And is there any links now being drawn between the boys' school and professional clubs? Are you pulling any strings there?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm trying. So I know a lot of clubs and a lot of contacts. So that's what we're trying to develop something. At the moment.
And so going forward, the next stage of your career is to build those links with Sherborne and build a career linking schools and in with professional clubs. Is that how you see yourself going forward?
Yeah, ideally, but also to improve my coaching. I wanted to not just be a goalkeeping coach. So in order to do that, I felt that the perfect place to do it is Sherborne, because I'm not under loads of pressure in terms of delivering results, but in terms of developing me as a coach and developing the boys in their football and not just their football, but as human beings, which I've learned over my career. That's fundamentally important. It's not just about the footballer; it's about the whole person, which is so important. So that's why I'm really enjoying it.
That seems a really good point to end, Chris. We've obviously gone from right back in the beginning all the way to the present day. So it seems a good point to thank you very much for coming on. And I can't wait to share this interview so that we can get everybody else hearing how you can go from grassroots all the way up to championship level football. So thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you.